Hello everybody, Lonna Lamb here. Welcome to my studio. Well, today we're going to work on this fun little plaque that I got at Hobby Lobby. On the opposite side of it, it has an apple pie recipe, so I thought it would be fun to paint apples on the back of it. Everything you see in the picture I got from Hobby Lobby, and you can grab it right now while they have 50% off of all their fall supplies. We're going to be using Deco Art Americana acrylic paints, and I do have a link and a coupon code to Deco Art down in the description box below. You can get the full packet at lonnalamb.com. So if you're ready, let's grab our paints and supplies. Let's get painting. Okay, you guys, let me wide angle out just a little bit. Let's get started on this project. This is just a surface I got from Hobby Lobby. It has this recipe for apple pie on it, which I thought was super cute. So we're going to paint some apples on the back. We're also going to add some other elements on here. This was wrapped around this, and I will probably re-wrap it. It had these glued to the front, and I may now glue them on here, but I think I will paint these beads red as we get through the process. I'm going to be painting a word, thankful, and put it on here. Now this is a package that I got from Hobby Lobby, and there's 2 of the words thankful, 2 of the words grateful, and 2 of the words blessed in here. And $2.49, but when I bought them they were either 40 or 50% off, so you know, $1.25 for 8 words. That's a pretty good deal right there. I have some leaves here that I bought these at Hobby Lobby, $2.99, but I did get these 50% off. And they're already painted, so we don't have to do anything with these. We can just grab one out of here, and let me make sure that, yeah, this is Hobby Lobby. They do have some wood pieces that are unpainted back in the raw wood section, but I think these were up with the fall decor and stuff that they had. But they may still be in the back as well. At my Hobby Lobby, their wood stuff, raw wood stuff, is in the back of the store. So, you know, check that out if you want to use something like this. But you can also use just the raw wood pieces. These are some that I bought from Patricia Rawlinson many years ago. And I could paint these up and put them on. But there's other ways you can get dimensional things on here. You can get a some hot glue or some clay and make some in some molds. So, you know, there's lots of ways. And you don't have to have this wood piece to do thankful on here. The packet will include the word kind of spelled out, you know, for you, so that you can trace and just hand paint if you want. I've kept this design fairly simple. I love painting fruit. I originally was just going to paint a rectangle in here, and then I decided I'm just going to paint the whole thing because, you know, it was just this brown color, and I thought, you know, that looked okay out here. But then I changed my mind. But you know, you can't never get enough coats to cover up that line. So hopefully when we get our other elements on here, that won't be noticeable. But if you're doing one like this, then you don't have to worry about that on yours. So I wanted to tell you how I got my apple shapes on here. I have this circle template, and this is not a stencil. It's actually used for people who do graphic arts and drafting and things like that. So it's in that section at Hobby Lobby. Michael's, actually I got mine at Michael's. I'm sure Hobby Lobby has it in their section as well. But it's kind of, that area is right by the fine arts area in Hobby Lobby. So I just picked an apple shape size that was good. This is actually a 2.5-inch circle right here. You do not have to have a circle template. You find a couple of round things in your home that will make the circle sizes that you want, and that's good enough. You don't have to have special tools. I've had these for years, many years. And then this one is a 2 3/4-inch circle. Oops. And then you can take that circle and shape it as you want. You know, you've got the area that you want it to be in. So if you wanted that to be more narrow at the top of an apple and wider at the bottom, kind of like some of the apples are, you can do that. I'm just going to keep mine nice and round for you guys. So I'm going to start with an underlaying of paint here. I can get my palette in the camera shot for you. And we're going to undercoat our apple with some, I'm going to use some moon yellow. I might mix some cat orange in with it just to give us, because we're painting on black. Now normally I would go in with gray sky if I'm painting just a red color, but this apple's going to be kind of reds and oranges, you know, some nice fall colors. And then we're just going to paint our, wake my brush up here. We're just going to paint in our apple shapes. So I'm going to mix, I'm just going to brush mix, you know, don't, some kind of something in my paint there. We need that yellow to get an opacity on top of this black. Too much water, more yellow. We don't want to have to work super hard on this, and the good thing about having a black background is you can touch up if you get it any place that you don't want it to be. And I just applied my black paint with a damp 2-inch foam roller. I generally, unless I'm doing some kind of special background, either apply it with a foam roller or a damp sponge. It's quick, nice thin coats, no brush marks in the background. Unless I actually want brush marks in the background, then I will use a brush. Alright, there's a first layer on that one. And we'll put a coat on this one. We're not going to do anything super fancy here, but I love to paint fruit because it is a very good thing to paint. It teaches you about values and depth and creating, you know, colors in there that you can leave a little bit of black right there if you want to start on some of your shading. And you could put your leaf on later if you don't want to mess with going around it. There's no set rules here. I used to paint in the element and then add the elements that were on top, and some designs I still do that. Alright, we're just getting our base coats in right now. Okay. Smooth it out a little bit if you can. If it hasn't started drying on you. Helps if you get a damp brush and not a dry one. Alright. Let's put a color on our leaves. And I think I might use a color I have not used in quite a while. I do have specific green colors that I like, but we're going to give this one a shot. Okay, my paint is super thick here. We'll see how it paints out. This color is light avocado. Cannot remember the last time I used this color. But it kind of seemed more like a fall green to me. So we're going to base coat in our leaves. And we're not going to worry about our stem until we have our apple a little bit more done. And you can put a stem on both. Well, I guess we have leaves on both, so we need stems on both. You could leave one without the leaves. This is kind of a curved leaf. first coat's on. I want to get these dry so I can get some second coats on. Alright, let's get our second coats on. This is dry, so I want this one to be more orange this time, but I'm still going to have to add just a little bit of that yellow in there. We will be adding some red on here later, so this is a mix of cad orange and a little bit of moon yellow. The first one was mostly moon yellow and just a touch of cad orange. Okay, so I want part of it to be more red, so I'm going to add some cadmium red on my palette. And we are just going to dirty brush right into this color. I can get some to come out. Okay, finally got some to squirt out of the bottle. Hopefully before this paint is dry. So I'm just going to pick that cadmium red up on my dirty brush and put it on this side. So maybe squeeze your paints out before you get going. Don't be like me. I'm going to remove the excess paint from my brush so that I can just kind of wet blend these. Just a light touch. We don't want to do a heavy pressure here because you know, it will start to lift paint. Let's go to this one and do the same. I'm going to start with the red this time. Cadmium red. So you see we're creating our dark side. Cad red. I'm going to wipe my brush off and grab some of the orange, see by itself, see if it's opaque enough. Still need a tiny bit of that yellow in there. And we're going to put it on this edge. Okay, now I can wipe the excess paint from my brush. And we'll just kind of blend these two. I'm just lightly with my brush doing this because I don't want to lift paint. They kind of look like peaches. This is a good start for some peaches if you want to do peaches. Alright, so this little area down here on this one, I do want to paint that in. Let me grab a small brush here. So I'm going to take this orange and yellow mix and we'll paint in down here. We'll darken that eventually, but I want to have a little bit of zoom in. Just I like to zoom in, but still keep the palette. I don't know that I'm going to be able to keep the palette on here. All right, so let's go ahead and put a second quick coat onto our green, and you know I always just add water into my paint because I don't need thick paint here. I just need paint to fill in and smooth out the first layer. And then we'll get everything dry. Nope, they look kind of orange, but I promise we will get them to a red color. Alright, let's see if we can start adding some values in here. I want to put some white out because we'll be needing that in a little bit. Okay, let's see if I can get my palette and camera shot here. I've added some crimson red, my white, which you can't see, it's right there, white, and some black onto my palette. So I don't know how well I can keep that in the shot and keep you focused on what I'm painting here. Okay, we're going to do a very similar technique to what we just did, actually pretty much the same. So this particular apple is maybe going to be a little bit lighter than this one because we've already started those values of being a little bit lighter. So I'm going to take my cad orange and my cad red and mix them together. I did just kind of an equal mix. And we're going to paint this side. I want a little bit more cad red, so let's do 2 cad red and 1 cad orange. But maybe I want a little bit of lightness up there, so maybe I won't put any up there. Okay, I'm just going to wipe my brush and then go into that red. Ooh, pretty, pretty. And we're going to start adding some red on here. We don't always have to do floating and all that stuff to get values that we want. And again, I want to leave some light stuff on this. So now I'm going to wipe my brush and remove all of my extra paint. And kind of blend these edges a little bit. I'm going to grab just a tiny bit of yellow here, because I still want to keep a lighter value here. But I do want to blend it, you know, so that it looks like it's supposed to be there. Okay, so there's a way we can start developing our values. I'm just going to dirty brush right into my dark red that I have here, and we're going to put this on right here. And I got over on that one, so let me try and remove that. Don't want to lose the shape of my apples here. This is that crimson red. It's a very pretty color, but again, it's a transparent color. Well, semi-transparent. It's not pure transparent. Now I'm just going to grab some cad red and put some on my brush. I'll wipe my brush out, because again, I want to leave some areas that are light. So I'm going to pick up a little bit of the cad orange and moon yellow and put some of that in here. Wipe my brush out, and then I can just blend all of this. And we're creating a light value here. And then just gently smooth out. Our paint is super wet in there, so we don't want to be, you know, lifting and doing something that's going to, you know, put a hole in our paint. So we have to be aware of when our paint becomes tacky or our brush is too wet with something, it's going to lift a layer if we overwork it. Overworking is our enemy. Alright, I'm going to go down here to this area, and I'm going to put a little bit of maybe the dark red and that other mid value. It really doesn't matter at this point what color this is down here. We just want to make sure it's becoming part of the apple. Okay? So we can still see where that little indent is. We're going to put some little dark stuff in there like the underneath of an apple is. So now we need to let this layer dry. All right, let's work on this one here. So this one I want the color to vary between these two apples. So this one I'm going to keep a little bit brighter, and this one I'm going to mute it down a little bit. So I'm going to do my mix of my cadmium red and my crimson red on this one. And I'm just making a very wet paint with some water. Wipe off, and then I'm going to go into the cadmium orange, because I want this apple to be lighter. Let's blend those two. Wipe my brush, get I'm going to corner into my moon yellow. A little bit of moisture in my brush here. Okay, I'm going to wipe that out, and now I'm just going to blend right here. Maybe grab a little bit more of that red. So we can get some nice values without doing any of that floating like we normally do. We are going to do some probably on these, but for now we're just going to keep building our layers. So this one I want to take my red, let me get a little bit more of that crimson red out, and I'm going to mix a little bit of black into it. Get some water on my palette here. So we're going to take our red, a little bit of black, that's a lot of black, more red. We're going to make this deep burgundy red here. And again, I've got some water in my brush, so I'm starting out with a damp brush. Okay, wipe the excess out and grab just cadmium red now. So this is how we can create some depth. All these varying colors. Wipe my brush. I'm going to gently blend these colors. Wipe my brush and get a little bit of the moon yellow because I want this light side here. Wipe my brush and then just go in and blend. When I lift up, you know, get more paint on my brush than I want when I'm blending, I just go wipe off the excess. Okay, we're getting some nice values going on there. All right, again, we want to dry, and this time we are going to go in with our floating technique, but you can just continue to add layers like this, like we did this, by mixing and all that stuff. So I'm going to get this dry so we can move on to our next layer. Okay, let's add some texturing, some lines, some speckling, all that good stuff in here. So I'm going to take this mix of red and black that I did down here, and we're going to create some lines. Let's get that a little bit more thin. Create some lines of, you know how apples are. They got lines and little areas. We need a little bit more black in there. Take those off because we want to make sure that we shape follow, and our stem is going to go in about there. Add a few little like speckly areas in my apple. All right, I'm going to grab a little bit more of the red in my brush and thin that down. And this one has its stem somewhere in there, so we want to create some texture on this one. Now some of this, once we add our really dark edge over here, we may not end up seeing. Put a little bit darker ones over here. Okay, I'm going to take that really dark stuff and create a little area down here. I'm really going to have to zoom in. We're not going to be able to see the palette for this, so. We'll put a little bit of dark color in here just to get us started. I'm still just using that red and black mix. Okay, since I can't have my palette in the camera shot, I'm just going to move it over so I can have this centered under the camera. Okay, I want to put a few light lines in here. So I'm going to take my cadmium orange and my moon yellow and mix them together. And see if these will show up on here. They may not show up. I might have to add a little white in there. There's just a tiny touch of white. I'm going to have a little bit of cad red to that mix, so it's more on the red side instead of the orange side. I'll just go back and forth between the two here. Okay, you want to add a few spots in this one. We can do that with some cad red. Nope, it's going to have to be darker, so let's go into that cad red and crimson red mix. You could probably just go some straight crimson red on here. Mix a little bit of the black in with it for maybe this darker edge over here. Alright, that looks pretty good for that layer right there. I want to make sure I put a little bit of the light color that we mixed down in here. And we can put some on this side. You know, if you want to see those fine little hairs, that was that light mix that we did with the moon yellow and the cad orange or cad red, either one will do, and a tiny little bit of white. Okay, let's start doing some traditional floating on here. Okay, now if floating is difficult for you to keep enough moisture in your brush, you can pre-dampen the area that you're going to float. So you can see that's nice and wet. We're going to float this side. We're going to start out with just that crimson red and black mix. So I really didn't need to have moisture in my brush when I loaded my brush because I put the moisture down on my surface. So if you have difficulty with floating, that's an easy way to get around that. Let's put a little bit of this here. And down here. Okay, that was a lot. I want a tiny bit more black in that mix there. I want more red than black, but I need to see a little bit of that darker value because I don't want to have to work too incredibly hard. And it's still very, very wet. So I'm just going to pity pat that kind of out. That's not going to be dark enough for me. But we're going to move to this one, and I'm going to do mostly black in my brush. I'm not going to pre-wet, but you can pre-wet. I've got black and just a tiny, just a little bit of red. I just used that brush, that mix that I had on my brush, and just added more black on my brush and blended it. Okay, you don't want all that choppiness in there. We're going to take a mop brush, and I'm barely tapping this because mop brush will remove your paint, but what I'm having my mop brush do is remove the moisture so that I can soften that paint down. Clean it on a wet spot, dry it on a dry spot. Here's where you can go to a smaller brush for sure. A little bit in there. Okay, we're starting to look like apples, I think. Okay, at any point, if you don't like the shape of something, here's how you fix it, because I don't like the shape of this right down here. So I'm going to take some of my black paint. And just kind of reshape the bottom of this apple a little bit. Go ahead and touch up over here where I got some red out there. At any point when you are painting, you can touch up. Now, this apple in front of me looks red. On the camera shot, it looks orange. So what I'm going to do, first I'm going to get it dry. Let's make a wash of our crimson red. So when I make a wash, I dip my brush into my water. I get a little bit of my paint, and I start making a puddle. I want it to be more paint in there, a little bit more water. We want enough of this wash to go over both apples, so I'm going to just keep adding some water in there. That's probably enough for 2 apples. Then we're just going to make sure this is dry. Let me get the water off my ferrule. I don't want that running down. Make sure this is dry, and we're just going to wash over both of these apples, the entire apple, with the wash of red. Over the highlight area and everything. Now, if you got a lot of paint in yours, and your highlight area is just too red now, it's an easy fix by taking a baby wipe and tapping some of that red right off of that highlight area. Okay, we're going to go to this one now. We're using the same color. We want red apples. This one I feel like needs to be a little bit darker on this side. I'm just going to go up to there and then mop that right there to remove the paint and moisture, soften that so that stays nice and light. Now I do want this side to be just a tiny bit darker, so I'm going to add a tiny, or a lot of black to my wash. Now you have to be careful doing this. I'm pretty much laying the brush flat. And now I'm just going to mop where those two colors meet right there. I'm going to try and keep my mop brush clean by going to a clean place on my paper towel and cleaning it out, and then going to a dry place and drying it off. So now I got to get this dry. Okay, I want to darken in the center of my apples with mostly black, a little bit of red in there, but mostly black. Where my stems are going to go in, I want this to be nice and dark. Any place else that you want to be super dark, you can add a little bit of shading. That was just a little bit of a wash of a black, and add a little bit of red to that. Alright, just completely obliterated all those little stem things I put in there, so maybe we'll just leave those out. Okay. We're going to work on the highlight now, and our highlight's just going to be with white. So I'm going to work some white into the corner of a damp brush, and we're going to create the bright edge here. Bring that out into the apple a little bit. This is not going to be very bright when it dries because my paint is very thinned down with water. To the next apple here. Again, a damp brush. Rinse your brush out if you need to. Oh, I didn't get enough white in my... Grab my mop brush. Got got a little bit of a hard line right here. I don't like it, so a little bit of moisture in my brush. Remove that, and a little bit of a scrubby dub. You can remove color with your baby wipe as well. I want a little bit of reflective light, maybe over here. We'll just keep that kind of narrow. And we'll put a little bit of a highlight right here. You can use a round brush to do this. You don't have to use this ginormous brush that I'm using. It's kind of worn out, not giving me the best highlights. A little bit right there. And I'm going to put a little bit right here. Just thin it down with the damp edge of my brush. Use your finger, take away paint that you don't want, okay? Edge here. Okay, that was a ton of paint on my brush right there. I'm going to remove some of that. I'm going to rinse that out because I've cleaned up a lot of places. Let's make sure it's dry. We're going to give just a little bit more brightness in just a couple places. Now, you can also create like a bullseye float on here. So again, a damp brush with a little bit of water, and we can create this super bright area right here. Tap, tap. Smaller one on this one. Get a little water on the water edge because that's going to help. Okay, and come back and brighten that. But for now, I'm going to add a little bit of brightness out here. And a little bit here. Get the paint to come off my brush here. Just a kiss. Okay, then in the center of that, we're just going to dot a little bit. Make sure it's dry. And just kind of tap it with your finger. You can go to down to a little brown brush for this if you want to. Okay, I'm going to clean up my edges. Got some paint on the top of my board. Okay, I think that's going to finish out the apples Now we're going to finish out the stem and the leaves. Let's do our stems. I'm going to take that green, let me put a little bit of it back out. And I'm going to mix a little bit of probably cad orange, cad red, either one. Either one will get you a fine brown color. Okay, so I'm going to take my red and let's grab some cad orange. Too much moisture. Let's grab some cad red and some more green. I might have to grab that brighter red in there to make a brown. We want to make a brown color. That's not quite the brown color I want. I made a mix of the green and the red up here, so let me just go with the green and the crimson red. That is not what I used. So green, cad red. That looks like the mix I used. Mostly green, a little bit of cad red. See, that makes it a nice brown. That one's too green still, but this one looks brown. Okay. All right, let's paint our stems in here. And we'll probably take a couple of coats. Okay, I'll dry that so I can put a second coat on it. These stems should be pretty quick. Another layer of brown. Okay, now I'm just going to get a little bit of black and blend that into my brush with that brown. And we'll put a little bit of shading at the bottom. Tuck that in there. And then wipe my brush off so I don't have a bunch of paint on it. I still need a little bit of paint. And we'll create a shadowy edge here. Okay. I'm going to wipe my brush off, and then I think I'm going to take a little bit of moon yellow and white. I did not clean my brush out. I just wiped the excess paint out. And just barely highlight those stems, okay? And that's really all we have to do to the stems. They're pretty much done. So now we're ready to move on to the leaves, and this one up here is a turned leaf, so the vein comes in right there. But this leaf is turned somewhere along there. Okay, I want to make a turned leaf on this one as well as, well, not that high, maybe down here. I'm going to make a little cutout on this leaf, and maybe the same on this one, maybe, well, not two sides. How about if we put a little hole in this one? Because this one's stem is going to come up through there, and both of these are going to come from this stem. Okay, that's just a visual guide for you. I'm not liking the flipped on this one. So let me see how I want to do this, because the vein's going to come up through here. So I really want a little bit of a flip on this one. You could put more than one flip. Okay, I'm going to use a chisel brush to paint the majority of this in. For the places that are cut out in the holes, we're just going to paint them in with black. Create some visual interest in our little leaves here. Alright, then let's take our, I got Hauser Dark Green. We're going to start with that color. For our shading, we will darken this, but let's start with this, and we'll go underneath, wipe a little bit of paint off, underneath this. Now if floating is difficult for you, go back to that, dampen it, pick up a little bit of paint and put it in there. That will do like an automatic blend for you. Let's get a little fold on that one. Okay, we want to do the base of these leaves with this color. I'm going to go next to the center vein here. I'm going to go on this side. The dark side. Okay, we're going to darken this edge a little bit over here, a little bit at the base on this one, and then a little bit out here. I'm up on the tippy toe, so I can just put a little bit of paint in there, take the other edge and just kind of scoot that paint along. Same here on this fold. I want that edge to be a little darker. Okay, so that's our first layer on there. Let's dry it. Okay, let's deepen that shading. We're going to take our Hauser Dark Green and add just a little tiny bit of black to it to darken it up. It's going to make like a, well, you can get it close to a black green, or this is more like maybe an evergreen. But why get another color when we don't have to? We got our colors right here. We can mix them. Okay, you'll go in all the places that you did before, only you want to try not to cover up everything that you did before. So be a little bit more selective. And don't forget the veins. Put a little darkness on this side because it's the darker edge of the leaf. Okay, that looks pretty good. It will be helpful to erase any graphite lines that are still on here. Okay, let's make our veins, or our stems, and we're going to take, which color do we want to use here? Maybe our avocado, and a little bit of black. That's a lot of black. Avocado. Let's see if this is going to show up. Nope. So a little bit more black. Maybe some of that Hauser Dark Green in there. I really need this to be maybe lighter instead of darker. Alright. That's not a color that's working for me. I'm going to remove that. That was like the color of the leaf itself. Okay, I want to go with the Hauser light green and a tiny bit of avocado. Hauser light green. And we want to wrap this one kind of around that stem there. This is Hauser light green. I have a teeny tiny little bit of avocado. Okay, we're going to highlight with this color. Now it's up to you if you want to make any kind of little veiny stuff going on in here. I would recommend making it kind of light and extremely subtle. Don't want it super dark down here in the shadow edge, so we may have to come back and darken that shadowy edge. So let's do that with that mix of black and green. I'm going mostly over the base of the stems, the veins, so that they look like they blend in with the apple a little bit, and then I'm taking a little bit onto the stem as it comes around. Okay, let's highlight on the leaves. We're going to use the Hauser light green. Hauser light green. Would be the dark edge. Try not to get into your and put a little bit around the hole here. Okay, I'm just going to pick up a tiny little bit of white and blend that in there to get just a little bit of a brighter highlight. Okay, and you're not putting it everywhere, just a few places. This actually needs to be a little bit lighter here. Put a little bit of that on your stem, or your part where the stem connects to the leaf. Okay, I think that is pretty good. That looks pretty good for our apples. Now I did put some yellow out. If we wanted to add some yellow onto these leaves, we certainly could. Let's see if I'm even going to like a little bit of yellow in here. Just kind of pity pat some. Well, that looks pretty good. I just pity pat it and then touch it with my finger. That looks pretty good. Okay, I like that. That needs to be dark right there. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. I think we're going to call the apples done. So at this point you want to clean up your background with your black. We're going to add, I think, maybe some gold details on here. I feel like the leaves need a bolder highlight. Mostly because the apples have a very strong highlight. So I'm using just a little bit of white. So just a little kiss of white. Okay. My fold got a little bit weird. Right here. But we'll go with it. Or maybe I'll just straighten it up with some black. Okay, I think I got all my black cleaned up on here. You can certainly tell where I painted fresh paint at. Okay, I've thinned some 24 karat gold with some water, so hopefully it will flow off of my brush. But I'm thinking I want to outline the leaves and not perfectly. Let's give a little bit of fun detail to this. We can outline the stem as well. Let's do it on the lower edge. I'm not doing this perfect. Let's give a little playfulness to this. And then if you want to make it even more playful, you can outline your apples. How fun is that? Love it. Love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. Okay, so I'm undecided on the apples. I kind of want to do a messy outline of them, of some gold, but do it more than once. All right, let me thin that a little bit more. I'm going to go 3 times because I think 3 will look the best. Okay, that was super duper thick. I think I'll do 3 on the leaves as well. Keep it all kind of going together. So cute. I love making things different. The unexpected, that's what's fun. So pretty. Love, 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 love. I'll put some gold in the apple itself. Oh, pretty. I'll just keep this on the highlight edge. It's so pretty. It's so different. It's so pretty. I love it. I'll put just a couple of light ones in the dark area. Oh. That is just so pretty. We may even do some gold on the outside, but now we got to get ready for our letters, which is thankful, that we're going to put across here, and I may make them gold. And then our leaves, we need to pick out what leaves we want to glue on here. I need to get my hot glue set up, and I'm probably also going to put a little bit of gold on them. I'll probably wash over them with some gold and give them some sparkle. Oh, we still got to put our stuff around the top. How fun is that? I just love it. Okay, this is looking super cute. Let me get some lights on here. And I love how this is looking. So I pulled some leaves out of my little box here. And I'm probably going to put some gold on them. I'm going to put a couple up here and a couple down here and one here. I'll probably, try and give these some kind of stems, but who knows, I may just leave them that way. So let's get them over onto my palette so we can add some special stuff to them, and we can paint our word thankful. Now if you're painting it directly onto your surface, you can just transfer the line drawing and put it on there. So I'm first going to apply some multi-purpose sealer. I've got my hot glue gun warming up. I'm going to put some gold paint on these, and I'm going to paint this a color and then probably make it gold as well. I put out way too much multi-purpose, but I want to seal my wood piece so that I'm not working so hard to get that paint on here. You can just apply this with a brush as well. We just want to seal our wood. This seals it, prepares it, and makes the paint not soak down into the wood, so we don't have to use as many layers, makes the paint stick. Important step. Okay. Alright, so now I just need to decide what color I want to do it. I'm going to go ahead and put some gold out for these two, but I've got to undercoat my word. That's plenty of gold. And I really am thinking I want to keep it kind of maybe a green and yellow color. I really like the Hauser light green. And I like the primary yellow. So maybe these two would work well together. I don't know. Or maybe end up doing just the yellow. But I'm just going to paint it with the makeup sponge. I might just do the yellow, that way it'll make the gold really pop on here. So now you can tape this to your wherever you're painting it with some glue dots or just some tape, double stick tape or something on the back, as long as you're putting it on a surface that it will stick to. Some surfaces, like this mat here, which is non-stick, silicone mat, the tapes and stuff don't want to stick to it, so you'll maybe want to put it on a piece of paper and do it that way. So while that's drying, I'm going to put some gold on my leaves to give them some shine. I think the colors that they are going to work just fine. So I'm just going to put a little coat of gold on here to give them some sparkle. Again, use a glue dot or double stick tape, stick these down to some paper or something while you're painting them. Makes it a little bit easier, they won't move around on you, you won't have to worry about, you know, lifting the paint where you have to put your finger. I'm just kind of pressing my fingernail against it so I won't lift any paint, but ooh, gold looks really pretty on this one. Love it. I mean, we don't have to do things the traditional way. So don't feel like, you know, you have to just paint strictly fall colors without doing anything special. I mean, you could even add some bling 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 on that. Let me make sure this is dry. I'll move it down here so I don't dry my paint up there. And we'll get it dry. And then we'll get another layer of paint on it. Just using the makeup sponge, that's the easiest. I'm going to do the top half of my letters. Now, you can varnish this before you put it on there as well, which I just might do, so I don't have to worry about varnishing it later. I might just not varnish it at all. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. Alright, we've got 2 coats of the primary yellow on there. You could add a little bit of cad orange on there to give it a little bit of a fall look, but I think I'm going to like just this color. Alright, let's cut the end of this off. And I want to clean the paint off of my scissors. And then we'll put some gold on here. I'll probably put a couple layers. I have my glue gun warming up. Okay, definitely want that to get dry, because I think I'm going to put a second coat on there. I'm trying to keep my heat from going over to my paint. My leaves, I might give them a quick dry and see if I want a second coat on any of those. I'm thinking the first, just one coat might be enough on them. Dry. Alright. Quick little second coat here. I'm just putting a little bit of a thinner coat on here this second go around. Okay, that looks really good. We'll give that a dry. Alright, let's rinse my brush out before my paint dries in there. I certainly don't want that metallic paint to dry in my brush. And let's bring this back over here. Set this over here to the side, because I want to put this stuff back on now. It was originally stapled on, but I'm just going to glue it on, I think. I'm getting a little start of some glue here. Stick that on there. Okay, I'm going to start wrapping this. I'm going to go below it first so I can catch that part that has the glue. And just wrap it as tight as I can on here. And it should come back around to the back. And I want to try and tuck this underneath if I can. Maybe a palette knife might work better here. Get all my strings off of here. Goodness. Okay. So on the front it had these beads, which I might just add back on. But on the back I'm going to put one of our leaves up here to continue our theme. So I'm just going to put some glue on the back of it and stick it right here. And then our word is dry. So I'm going to move as quickly as I can with the glue and get it on here and then get it on my surface. And I'm just going to put it on straight across. Press it down on there. Get all my little stringies off. Alright, now my other leaves. I'm going to do down here. And then my thankful doesn't quite look, oh, this side's not stuck. Oh, none of it's stuck. Okay, well, I don't think I was using a hot enough glue gun, so I'll have to peel that glue off and redo it. Let's go ahead and put these on. Down here. I've got another glue gun that's battery powered. I'll just grab it. Okay. And then, alright, let's try this again. So I got pretty much all my glue off. I'm going to first put some E6000 on this, and then I've got my high temp glue gun, and I will put that on in a few places. So hot glue, I have to remember to try not to touch this hot glue because it is extremely hot. Alright, let's see if I can get this on straight. Well, straight enough, I think. I don't know if it was intentionally made to, you know, go at a slant or not, but I think that looks good enough. Let me close up my E6000 that is oozing out. Alright, we got a couple more leaves to put on here. I think that's just too close to my apples. So I think I'm going to put them up here. I'm just going to use this cool temp glue. Now these leaves, you could repaint them any color that you want them to be. They're yellow on the back, at least these are. And the one side has that little bit of red on there. Okay, get all your strings off of there. So now you can varnish it. I would recommend varnishing the surface before you apply this stuff. And go from there. You can spray varnish it. You might want to do that before you add this. And then decide if you want to put this back on this side. This is what came on it in the store. This little thing here. So there we go. I think it turned out super cute. Get all my greasy fingerprints off of here. All my strings. I think it is super cute. I absolutely love how this turned out. So I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Alright, thanks so much for joining me for this one. Please give me a thumbs up if you've enjoyed it. Please subscribe, please comment, please share, and if it's been the first 7 days, please hit that hype button. That'll tell YouTube to send it out to more people. Thanks so much, everybody. Bye-bye.